Welcome to Extra Takes, hosted by Northland Church Senior Pastor, Dr. Joshua Laxton. Join us each week as Pastor Josh reveals the rest of the story behind his sermons. We'll discuss how those who follow Christ can live out a biblical vision for the church in our world today.
Well, hello, Northland family and friends. Hey, welcome to another episode of Extra Takes. Hey, I'm your co-host, PJ, along with Matt Shiles, and we're here to debrief and to discuss Easter.
Yes, I'm excited.
Are you?
Yeah.
Good.
I have a funny story that's...
Oh, you have a funny...
That happened this weekend. It isn't really related to Easter, but one of our listeners, our longtime listeners, I will not name who it is. So one of the pictures we have for the promo for Extra Takes is me doing my little wave.
Yep.
And he said, you were looking right into the camera when that popped up on the TV. He just waved right back, like instinctually.
So he reacted.
He reacted to me, and
to a video of you.
I think it was even just a picture of me.
Oh, okay.
And he just looked up and did it.
Nice.
It's one of those you look around and you're like, did anyone see that? So yeah, that was pretty funty.
It's kind of like when I fall asleep on an airplane.
Uh-huh.
And have you ever got startled? Like you shake and that's a little embarrassing. And you wonder if anybody saw you.
I mean, that'll happen when I'm watching a movie with the family and
you fall asleep.
I have.
Oh yeah. Hey, listen, if I'm gonna fall asleep, I'm gonna do it in my bed.
You're just like, I'm done.
I'm done.
I'm not doing it.
Nope.
All right. So let's get into Easter. We're here. Are you recovered?
No. I mean, I did. Well, yesterday, my watch at least told me I was recovered, and then I went to do an intense workout. I have not recovered from that intense workout. So I woke up this morning with 50% recovery. So it's just like your system's not fully charged. You could do something, but so I actually feel a little foggy.
Okay.
Today.
You're going to scale down today.
Yes, I'm going to try.
All right.
So
we'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this was a good weekend. This was still in Genesis. I loved how you really made this as part of the regular series, but it felt special and unique. And for those of us that were here, it felt cohesive of something you were building up to, but it also felt as a standalone for anybody that just hopped in and hopped out. They could experience it, understand what was happening but for those of us that are participating with Extra Takes every week, we really saw that progression of what we've been learning through Genesis, and yeah, it's a really impactful message. I'm looking forward to getting into it. So we were in Genesis 12, 18, and 22, and this was April 4th and 5th, 2026. So we did a couple things. You started out introducing this question. You wanted to have a little bit of fun. What does it mean to be a fill in the blank? So what does it mean to be a student? What does it mean to be a parent? What does it mean to be a triathlete? And then you offended like a third of the crowd by what does it mean to be a UF fan? And you ended with the crying Michael Jordan meme. Oh, I loved it.
I thought it was pretty fun.
Did you get any feedback?
Well, of course. From a couple of UF fans that wanted to walk out. I said, listen, if I pick on you, it means I love you.
Yeah.
And then my daughter reminded me that she's going to FSU and that I cannot be a UF fan. I can't even love them.
There you go.
Then I'm like, did you not listen to the sermon? I got to love everybody. I got to love sinners.
Even Republicans and Democrats.
Yes, exactly.
You went there. And then you led that into this big question of the sermon was, what does it mean to be saved? AKA, what does it mean to be a follower of Jesus? And before we even got into these three radical shifts, you laid out maybe some of the most shocking parts of the whole message was this question of why this message is important.
Yeah.
And just from the beginning, I mean, you laid it all on the table. Some of you need to be saved. Some of you think you are saved and aren't and need to be. Some of you aren't because you've been hurt or confused by who you think are saved. And then Some of you need to be taught, reminded what it means to be saved. So this was very much a message for the cultural Christian, for the known non-believer, but for all of us. I mean, even for believers who are walking faithfully, trying to walk faithfully, it wasn't one of those messages that you could just go, "Oh yeah, he's talking about them."
Yeah.
Right. We were all in it and had an opportunity to be challenged, which is not an easy thing when you're speaking to such a broad audience. So the main point, being saved, isn't about adhering to a religious set of rules, but about adopting these radical shifts because of a relationship. And then you spent the time talking about these radical shifts, adopting a new life, adopting a new objective, and adopting a new love. I wasn't sure if you were going to point out that it's spelled LOL. I was waiting for that the whole time. I was elbowing Kaylee when it was happening. I was like, "Oh, watch what he's about to do." But then you connected that, why is this important? Why these three things? And then you connected it back to Jesus and showed how each of those, the new life, the new objective, and the new love, is found in Jesus. And then you ended with this, how to be saved, have faith in King Jesus. So let's start by looking at the word of the week. What's one big word?
Shifts.
Shifts, okay. How does that connect to transitions? Especially when you're talking about transitions that
They're the same. I mean, they're really are, particularly in the context, they're one and the same, because I actually talk about, Abraham, actually in my book, and talk about Peter in my book, that there's these transitions that they have to go through. And so this is the idea of Abraham transitioning from where he was born and raised to now where God's going to take him. And that's why I even talked about, like, as he's making this shift of this new life and this new identity, he's not perfect at it. Mm-hmm. And that's why I wanted to say it's what it means to be saved, because that you will adopt these, but this is where you're learning these. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you're really learning what these shifts are supposed to look like in your life based upon who God is. And if it wasn't Easter, then I actually would really be talking about and stressing that to really make sense of mission, that these three things are actually what it means to be on mission. So you do have a new life, which is different than the life around you. You have this kind of, when I say new missional objective, is that you are to bless. So what I want you to understand, like in the mission world, you have mission, you have missions, and you have missional. Mm-hmm. And so mission is what God is on, that he's on mission to redeem a people. So he's going to save, he's going to save the totality of who that people is, okay? Then those people do missions. There's this activity of we've got to go out and we've got to do something. So we've got to share. We got to bless. We got to, and then there's this missional, that the totality of your life is actually embodying the fact that you are now living. You're living out something from another, and that another is God, because He is a missional God, who's on mission to redeem a people from all people. So this is where, making sense of mission, you take those three things of these radical shifts, and that's where, like, if you don't embody these radical shifts, I truly do question whether or not you truly are saved. Yeah. And that's why I tried to really get at the very end, without waxing people over the head, whacking people over the head with a club, but really trying to get you to think, like, if you've not embodied, if you don't even have a hint of these three, because they're radical shifts, they're radical. Yeah. Then I question whether or not you got the real Jesus.
Yeah, and we'll get there now. I had a question later on about those radical shifts. So you did point out that these are not just small transitions, small shifts in a life. They are radical. And if someone listening is trying to wrestle with the radical nature of it, talk about how might your book, we weren't planning on doing this, but how might your book help somebody process that? You talked about Abraham's in the book, but how does the book help them process this? Because it really feels like it's a tool to help someone that says, man, I've recognized I'm either, going into a season of life or in a season of life where I have a big transition, or, hey, I just experienced this message where I realize my spiritual life has not actually gone through this radical transition that it should.
Yeah, so in the book, I have a whole section where I talk about the spiritual transition and even transitions that believers go through, or that they should go through. And so I look at Abraham, I look at Peter, because Abraham is he's a good example of someone who transitions faiths. He goes from one faith to another.
Right.
You see Peter, he has these micro transitions of faith, of following Jesus. So we look at that because, again, this idea of following Jesus is that there is this transition, this big radical transition, and really transitions that we saw these three areas. But then there's these constant micro transitions, shifts that you're making, because these shifts, and this is the reason why I begin to end it with Jesus, is because if you're in Jesus, you will become like Jesus. If you are in Jesus, you will become like Jesus. And so therefore, as you are becoming more and more like him, you're constantly making these micro shifts to being formed and forged more into the image of Jesus. So that's where, and that's where connecting, making sense of mission, and even this message that I did create more as a standalone, but also part of the series.
Yeah.
That it is continuous of the series.
Yeah.
Because this is, if you really wanted to make sense of mission, these are the three things. This is what it means to actually follow Jesus.
Yeah. So I have this idea of mission is about movement. Can you have mission without movement?
No. Because movement also creates, here's the other thing, movement also creates friction. And if you don't have friction, then you don't have movement. And friction is also, and if you've ever ran or you've ever done any kind of movement, that has created friction, sometimes it's uncomfortable. And that is part of what it means to follow Jesus, that there's this discomfort that you feel. And if you've never felt discomfort, I don't know if you understand what it means to follow Jesus, or if you say that you understand what it follows Jesus, that you're really following the real Jesus, because following him makes you uncomfortable. It creates friction because it's constantly asking you to change. It's constantly asking you, because remember, change and transition, they're two different things. Change is situational, transition is psychological. So he's asking you to change. So Abraham was called to change locations geographically. So there was a change, but he had to actually process that change, which is the transition. I'm no longer in the land of Ur of the Chaldeans. I'm no longer, in my father's household. I've left my homeland. I've left my father and his household, and God has taken me to this new land, this new way of living. And so I've got to make that transition. So I've got to process that. So yeah, you got all of that going on.
Yeah, I love how there's always so much more behind the scenes than we realize, and there's way more connections, especially with mission. I mean, it shouldn't come as a surprise to any of us, but you are a missiologist, and you are always bringing us back to God's mission, even if it's not stated overtly like it is here. It always connects back to His mission, which is so important for us to understand. That, but yeah, that's helpful about, there has to be movement with mission, and yeah, that idea of change and transition. I do get the sense that our Christian culture in the past has potentially allowed some to change. Right, I'm a non-believer and now I am a Christian, and change their religion card, but haven't actually processed it psychologically, which would, as you're showing us, result in these radical shifts.
Yeah, and though again, and to really stress it, these radical shifts become part of God's mission and missional, because when you have a people, when you have a people that have been that has been redeemed by the Lord of all creation, and they are adopting His life, His objective, and supreme loyalty, because they have unfettered, unadulterated love for God. That is a unique people in the world.
Yeah.
And then it generates questions, and not only does it generate questions, but it also generates friction anywhere you go, because it is a threat to the people there.
Yeah.
Because you're either telling them what they believe is, or you are threatening their way of life.
Gosh, I think it's so helpful for us to recognize that we will have friction and to be expecting it. So let's look at this. Was there a big takeaway or big takeaways that you experienced as you were walking through this?
Well, yeah, I mean, I didn't, so 6 months ago, actually a year ago, I knew that I would be in Genesis 22 for Easter. I didn't actually think until probably a month or so ago that I would do all three.
Yeah.
But this is where I'm like, I want to show how Abraham follows God, because he is the poster child. I mean, he's what it means to not only have faith, but actually to demonstrate that faith. Because Paul's going to talk about this idea in kind of even in Galatians and then Romans, of how Abraham, he is the representative of what it means to live by faith. And then even James is going to come and say, without works, faith is dead. So there's that movement, is that if you don't have a faith that's moving you somewhere, then you don't have faith. Here's the thing: you do have faith. You just don't have you don't have faith in the right person, because everybody has faith, and that's the thing that I want people everybody has faith, and I've established that many a times before.
That's where the faith framework is so helpful. Yeah.
So my takeaway, I think my biggest kind of takeaway as I was building this is actually to show that these were really the three things that Jesus did. Because as I'm developing it, I'm like, oh my gosh, you got Jesus, and then you see and it's not like I'm even forcing it. You see the identification, that Jesus had. You obviously see his. I mean, again, knew his objective in multiple places, and then obviously his love. And I think sometimes that idea of Jesus' unconditional love for the Father, and that's the reason why he went to the cross, not because he loved us, and it's like, no, listen, and that is a huge theological point, because if you think that here's the thing, if you think that God, Jesus, loved you supremely, more than he loved himself, then you actually don't know the Bible. And that's a huge element that a lot of times people don't actually take to heart and digest. And so looking at those three things, because Jesus didn't, Jesus didn't. I mean, here's the thing, and we can talk about this maybe later. We can talk about it right now. But that list that I gave, it's not that list is a bad list.
The list of when you said, "Notice the things I did not say."
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
you talk about.
Believing the Bible, reading the Bible, going to classes, or confirmation, or praying, or giving, or serving. Okay, so Jesus did all those things too, but again, those aren't the things that are the primary way. Because if I had to do it over again, I actually would have created a chart, even though, hey, I hit my time limit for Easter.
What was the time?
Well, I mean, I said 42 minutes. I mean, they gave me 40 minutes, but I'm like, listen, I ain't doing 40 minutes. I'm just getting warmed up, so I landed the plane. I got warmed up and then I landed the plane in like 2 or 3 minutes.
It didn't feel rushed.
No, I didn't. So I kept it moving, but I would have created a chart of here are the primary elements of what it means to be saved. These are the secondary, because I could have shown how the secondary feed the primary.
So are you saying that whole list, believe in the Bible, prayer, church attendance, is secondary?
Yes.
Because it's the physical activity of what it means to be saved?
Well, it's how so in this where I would explained it a little bit more, and I almost thought about even creating it for extra takes. But imagine like a kind of a two-tiered chart where you have the primary activities and then you have the secondary activities. Yeah. So really the primary activities these are the big things like life identity, objective mission, love, loyalty. Okay, then you have to ask yourself, okay, how do I grow in those activities? Well, then that's where you go into your secondary. So think about triathlons. Okay, so swim, biking, running. Okay, so those are the three main activities. So then I have to then go, what are the secondary ways that I actually build the capacity to swim better? What are the ways that I build the capacity to bike better? And so then I actually have these kind of secondary activities that feed the primary activities. So, but what happens, and this is where the Pharisees, and this is why I use the Pharisees as an example, they did all of these, but Jesus called them the children of hell. Why? Because they made those the primary activities. And that those are the primary activities that they felt like they had to do in order to be saved. Yeah. They thought those were the activities of how to be saved, not what it means to be saved.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does, and I want to drill into that a little bit more, because you said something to the effect, you talked about the Pharisees, but also brought it to modern day and said, some people that are doing all these things are going to hell.
Yeah.
Let's talk more about, like, how can that happen? So are they doing, is it doing this out of religious duty and obligation? And ultimately, if we think of the faith framework, Jesus is not in the center. I mean, there's a faith in something. Maybe the faith is in religiosity. The faith is in, duty. The faith is in family, or...
I think particularly in our culture, I think there's two particular reasons. I think one, they were taught that way, and that's where you got to really pay attention to who you're sitting under, because if you sit under somebody because I remember growing up in some circles, people basically said, if you don't come to church, if you don't come to Sunday night church, if you're not committed, you don't know Jesus. And I'm like, I don't, and as I've grown, I know what they were saying, but I actually think that is very dangerous, because that is leaning towards a works-based salvation, that if you don't do these things, you don't love Jesus. Now, one of the things that I am saying, though, I'm actually going, though, to the primary activity and activities, life, objective, and love. Yeah. That's where I'm going to, because you can have perfect church attendance and not know Jesus. You can actually know Scripture and go to many Bible studies and actually not know the risen Jesus. So you can know of, but not know. And this is part of where I feel like, there is a residue of in some sense past American Christianity that, if you're not careful, does lean to more of a religious set of dues, and that if you don't do these, then you really don't know Jesus. And then I think there is, from a fallenness and a brokenness of humanity, that we tend to want to work for our salvation. And this goes all the way back to the garden, where when Adam and Eve felt something, when they felt embarrassment, shame, what did they do? They went to work trying to clothe their shame, their nakedness, their sin. Yeah. And so their work was out of a love for themselves, not out of a love for God, which is why I go all the way back. So this is where it's so important to stay at a church so that you can build, because what do I say sin is? Sin is the unraveling of supreme love for God, because the unraveling of supreme love for God leads to disobedience to God. Okay, so this is part of where this new life, this new objective, and this new love is all driven by your relationship with Jesus, where if you're not careful, you can be driven by love for yourself to actually cover your shame and your embarrassment, or what you're seeing as something that you don't like. Then I'm going to believe the Bible. I'm going to pray. I'm going to go to church. I'm going to serve. I'm going to give. So so that God will love me. And it's kind of, then you're doing those things for the wrong reason. Because they're not driven by a supreme love for God. They're driven by really a supreme love for yourself, because there's something about you that you're trying to do. Whether it's you're trying to earn salvation,
right.
And I can't wait till next week. Oh, I can't wait till next week.
Oh, boy.
Oh, because I'm just going to give you this.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you this statement, okay? Yeah. And I'm going to see if I can remember it. In God's economy, His promise is free, but it will cost you everything. I'm just going to leave it at that. So in God's economy, His promise is free, but it actually will cost you everything. And so you'll have to come next week for
that's a great line to tag on to what we were just talking about, because there's such an interesting dynamic between faith and works, and there has been from the beginning, and then obviously you have something that sets Christianity apart from every other religion is this earning your way, this works-based faith and salvation, and there's such a tension, and the church has wrestled with that. The pendulum has swung from one to the next, and you have denominations that err on one side or the next. So I think it is that is such a topic worth work out your salvation with fear and trembling. It's such an idea and topic to really think on and dwell on. And what are my motivations? Right? Are these activities coming out of a motivation of an outpouring of who I am in Christ, or are they trying to get me there? I mean, that's a hard thing to diagnose in others, and that's a hard thing sometimes for people to diagnose in themselves.
Well, yeah, but that's what you've got to diagnose in yourself, and that's the thing. I can't diagnose it for you. Now, I can. Here's what I can do, at least according to Scripture, and I do. I mean, you can judge a tree by its fruit. And if it's producing fruit, you're like, okay, well, they're connected to obviously the source of fruit.
And that's the danger when we think that list is fruit.
Yeah, that list isn't fruit. That list, again, that list is supposed to feed the major activities. I mean, because you have to understand, like, Abram didn't have the Bible. Now, what he had to believe God, and that's what we see in Romans 4. He believed God, and it was accredited to him as righteous. Yeah. Now, and this is the interesting part about So this is the interesting part when you look at so Abraham is mediating. Mm-hmm. He never gets down to 1.
Yeah, he gets down to 5 or 10.
He gets down to 10.
Okay.
So even Lot doesn't cover 10.
Yeah.
But here's the other thing. Lot's not righteous. If you know anything about Lot, he's not righteous. I mean, he picks land for himself.
Right.
He's like, this is better for me. I mean, so he's selfish.
His family was saved, but he would not have been counted as righteous.
Right. So let's put it this way. Abraham is trying to, in some sense, save Lot, but also save the entirety of Sodom and Gomorrah.
Yeah.
So this is where he is mediating on behalf of Lot, and he's mediating on behalf of the city.
Yeah.
But there are no righteous people. Like I preached on that passage before, and one of the things that I had said, and I may have, and I probably would not say it like this again, because Abraham actually wasn't righteous. It was credited to him as righteous because he believed. Now, but so I think I could still be right to say he never got down to himself. Lord, would you take me and spare the city? would you take me and spare the city? But even
Right.
Paul wished he could do that, but he didn't have to do that because there was one who did. And that's what I try to bring out in Gospel Connections, where
Right.
there were no righteous to spare the city. Jesus is righteous to spare the world.
Yeah, Abraham was only righteous because of his faith.
Yeah.
Jesus was righteous, period.
Yeah, and and then I mean, just think about the lopsided, the grace of and the mercy of that, where you take the one righteous who has ever existed, God Himself, and He dies for the unrighteous to spare them. You know, and again, I mean, you're seeing, and this is part of where you're seeing the growth of what it means to be saved from Abraham. You know,
Yeah. Yeah, because, you look at the way he responded to, to the sacrifice with Isaac. That wasn't the way he would have responded 30, 40 years ago.
Well, no,
I mean, you see a drastic transformation in his life. It's shocking.
yeah. Oh, I mean,
That's the whole point of it.
It is, and that's why I call them radical shifts. They are very radical. I mean, and this is where sometimes do we understand the radical nature of what it means to follow? And the reason why it's a radical nature is because Jesus imputes His nature into ours, which is radical. We have a sin nature. We're prone to wonder, Lord, I feel it, prone to lead the God I love. And the nature now inside of us, because Jesus' death and resurrection is radical. So that's why I call it adopting, because you're adopting these and you are learning. Just like if you adopt a child, you are learning what it means to parent that child.
And you're making it your own. Yeah.
And that, and that child is learning what does it mean to be
Right.
that part of that family.
Yeah. So were there any big changes between the 4 services? Things you added, things you removed? That sometimes happens from Saturday to Sunday. Didn't know if anything shifted.
No, I mean, I think I think maybe even at the 1 o'clock, I tried to stress more about you're learning these. These aren't you're not going to be perfect, but you're learning, you're growing.
Yeah.
And I think, again, that's a big part. Is like God's not asking you to be perfect in these. These are radical shifts that you're learning. But if you don't, again, this is going back, if you don't embody these shifts, then I don't know if you've ever put your faith in Jesus. I mean, because again, this is where I want to go back to the life. I mean, so you adopt a new worldview. You adopt, and I talked about that worldview, but you adopt a new set of ethics. And then again, this is where the secondary activities feed that. So this is why you ought to go to church. You ought to sit under teaching of people who know the Bible and that you trust, that know the Bible is going to teach you according to what the actual Bible says. I mean, here's the thing that we're learning in our day and age. Is there are a lot of people who teach the Bible, but sometimes and a lot of times they're not teaching the Bible correctly. And I know it might seem prideful that I would say that. I do believe that I teach the Bible correctly, and I think that I have, and that I continue to study the Bible. And not just rely on when I say one voice, but a multitude of voices, not only throughout history, but also through kind of throughout when I say denominational life, because I actually don't think there's just one denomination that owns the market on truth. And so and I think sometimes a denomination can become so prideful where they think that, and it actually limits their ability to teach the Bible correctly in certain areas. So this is where now, do I get things wrong sometimes? I mean, I have in the past, especially when I started out in my 20s and 30s. But this is where I'm only going to, and so some people are like, well, when are you going to get to Revelation? Well, when I can do it justice. Because I do believe that there's even a deeper depth that I've got to be at in Revelation, because I cannot teach Revelation like in a like one vein teaching. I feel like to do it service and to do it right, I got to at least express, here are other ways you can interpret it just to be faithful.
Right.
Because this is where this is why I believe it is so dangerous right now with certain prophecy people out there that think that they are scholars on and they're not on the prophetic literature, and so they'll look at what's going on in Iran and they'll start I believe it's one of the most dangerous things that are happening even right now, because I can tell you that the Bible says even Jesus told his disciples only the Father knows. Yeah. Now there can be signs. I'm not saying that there can't be signs, but I want you to understand that when Jesus was giving signs, like even in Matthew 24. About the signs of the end times, those signs were happening in the first century. So let's take a step back, and so that's where I mean, I think sometimes there can be this spiritual pride out there from certain Bible teachers that they're teaching something that the church hasn't even agreed, the church hasn't found full agreement on in 2,000 years. That's why I think it's so prideful for, I call it liberal evangelicalism, to actually shift 2,000 years of church teaching around homosexuality. I mean, that has to be a spiritual pride, like the Sadducees, because the Sadducees were the liberal sect of religiosity back then, because they didn't even believe the entire Old Testament. Okay, so this is part of where you got to be very careful with the teaching that you have. And so this is where I'm like, listen, I'm going to, just what Paul tells Timothy, I'm going to study in a way that shows myself as this approved workman who's not ashamed of the truth. And so that's where I put a lot of work, into, and then you also have to understand that I was telling a young person in ministry recently, did you ever, I'm 43 going on 44, but I've actually been studying the Bible intensely since I was 11 years old. And then I have gone to college and I have a Bible studies major degree. Then I went to seminary and got a master's of divinity, and then I have a PhD. And so one of the things that I look at over the course, that was building a base. Mm-hmm. So and it's kind of like in triathlons, is you got to have a base before you even begin to build speed. Yeah. And so I have an extensive base on I would hopefully call it robust theology, which is why I can go to certain things and go deep in those and really find because I have such a deep base. Yeah. But what I want to do is continue to go into those areas that I haven't built the deep base on and build a deep base, because that actually takes time. Right. That takes time. And so that's part of where I want to be a Bible, and I feel like I'm coming into my own of truly, I could be and I am a preacher and I do preach at times, but I want to teach. Because if you don't learn, and you don't learn the connections, and you don't learn the depth of truth and actually how it intersects your life, then I'm not doing my job of teaching you the new life, the new objective, and the new love.
So let's talk about that base. What happens with that strong base if you stop working out, stop running? If you stop reading your Bible, you stop exercising your faith, what happens to that base over time?
You have an atrophy. You have a muscle atrophy where you used to have mass and where you used to have endurance, you no longer do. That's why so it's so funny. Yesterday when I was running, from a guy, when I say just from an average, triathlete, that's what I would call myself, an average triathlete. I don't do this for a living. This is something that I do to stay in shape, but I'm talking about for an average triathlete, I could go out today. And now I'm trying to build speed between now and September. I could go out today and do a half Ironman in probably 7 hours and not kill myself, which shows the base that I have. Yeah.
Well, and you can say that confidently because of the work you put in.
Yeah, and so, but if I stop, but I actually said and I literally said this when I was running yesterday, I never want to lose this pace, because it actually, I'm able to even do what I did this past weekend, to do Friday, to do Saturday, and to do 3. I'm able to do that without it completely, like, truly wiping me out for several days, because the amount of energy I put into it. Now,
Sure.
I could be more reserved, but that's not me. And
Right.
so to really keep up the capacity, I actually have to keep up the athletic endurance capacity. And so that's what, if I stopped, I'm going to have an atrophy. Just like if I stopped lifting weights, I'm going to have a muscle atrophy. So therefore, I'm not going to be able to lift as heavy, not as long. And so that's what happens when you actually stop, lifting weights, when you stop running. And this is part of where, okay, so if I know that I'm supposed to have this new life, this new objective, this new love, then I'm actually going to have to do activities. So this is part of the reason why I would say go to church. This is part of the reason why I would say read your Bible. Yeah. This is why I would say find a class, find a small group, because those are actual ways that you learn and you exercise the muscle of learning. But here's the thing, you've actually got to put it into practice. So this is the thing, I could read about, elevating my VO2 max. I actually got to go out there and perform it. So I got to go out there, and I've got to. I did hill sprints yesterday, because in Winter Springs there's this bridge, and so there's this hill. So so it's not a lot of hills around us, but that is a hill, a man-made one. And so I went out there and did sprint intervals. So if I'm going to build my VO2 max, if I'm going to build my endurance and speed capacity, I've actually got to go do hill sprints. So I did those. Those hurt. When I say they really take the breath out of me, hurt my legs, and and in some sense make my lungs feel discomfort. So you've actually got to put that into practice. So when you're faced with the decision, do I look at this image or do I not? Like that's the image of a new life and my new ethics. I'm not going to look at this image. I'm going to restrain from that. When you're faced with, I'm going to be angry, because normally I would be angry. No, I'm faced with this. Now I got to put into practice. No, I'm not. And so, but those are actually the true own activity. All of this other stuff is learning. You've actually got to put it into practice. And that's the difference.
That's great.
And that's what we see with Abraham. Yeah. He's putting it into practice. He left. He goes. That's putting it into practice. He's learning not to lie. He's learning, I don't need to lie. I don't need to lie. And this, I'm trying to learn, that I do have this new ethic, but this new authority, that this is what God said. I'm going to trust Him. So I'm not going to manipulate. I'm not going to put things in my own hands. Man, I'm going to bless other people. So here I am. I'm praying for Sodom and Gomorrah. God forbid. Like you said, bless all families of the earth. Well, here would you spare them? And then this new love. I mean, he's like, gosh, he is exhibiting. And then I just want to read it, and I did read it the week before, but I just want to stress what God says. I mean, this is amazing. All right, so verse 12 of Genesis 22. Do not, this is the angel of the Lord, do not lay a hand on the boy. Do not do anything to him. Now I know that you fear God, because you have not withheld from me your son, your only son. I know, because of what you've done, because of your act, because of this radical shift, I know you revere me. I know that now I'm supreme in your life. And so Abraham looked up, and there in the thicket he saw a ram caught by its horns. He went over and took the ram and sacrificed it as a burnt offering instead of his son. So Abraham called that place, the Lord will provide. And to this day it is said, on the mountain of the Lord it will be provided. And that's where I was really trying to stress that, hey, when you get to that point where God is supreme in your life, where you supremely love God more than anything else, that's actually the place where God will reveal himself as that he's all your need, because he will meet every need that you have. He will be Jehovah Jireh. But then look at this. The angel of the Lord then called to Abraham from heaven a second time. And here's what Jesus tells Abraham. I swear by myself. That's why it's not an angel, because an angel cannot swear by itself. So this is where it is. It is the pre-incarnate Jesus. I swear by myself, declares the Lord, that because you have done this and have not withheld your son, your only son, I will surely bless you and make your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky and as the sand on the seashore. Your descendants will take possession of the cities of their enemies, and through your offspring, all nations on earth will be blessed because you have obeyed me. And here's the thing, obedience, and this is where I want to just again stress, obedience is connected to supreme love for God, because here's the thing, you can read your Bible, you can pray, you can give, you can do all of that, just like the Pharisees, but have supreme love for yourself, and the promise and the movement of God's not happening through you because it's all for you. But when you obey God out of supreme love for God, because you have now identified with God and you are on mission with him, this is what I'm going to work through you. This is and he's stressing Genesis 12. All of these things that he has promised to do through Abraham, he's like, I'm surely going to do this. Now, why? Because you are mine, you've adopted my mission, and you supremely love me. Yes, I'm going to do this. But here's the thing, if Abraham does not supremely love God, then, and this is like, God's not moving through him.
Oh, that's so good.
So that's where I'm like, and I love how at the very end, and so in what you're going to see, Genesis 22 is the shift, because Abraham's gonna, you're going to see just it's actually going to shift to Isaac, and then you're going to see Abraham die.
Yeah.
So this is the height of Abraham. What we're seeing is that, yes, God, he's tested Abraham, and Abraham has proved himself faithful. So you could actually, when you take this message that we've done, you can actually say this is a litmus test to see whether or not you're saved. Again, these things do not save you. These things actually demonstrate that you are saved. So you could actually say this, because this is the actual new love and loyalty is the last kind of test that God gives Abraham to see, all right, are you, in some sense, are you my guy?
Right.
And God knows that he's this guy, but he's testing Abraham so that Abraham knows that he's his guy.
Oh, that's so good. All right, so maybe we've covered most of these three pretty good. Maybe one final question. Any ideas that you left out of the message, or things that you already kind of talked about, hey, wanting to do this chart, but anything else that if it was a different week, or if you just had more time, you would have covered more or differently? I've actually preached on one of the reasons why I didn't feel like I needed to go in depth. Again, in Genesis 19, Sodom and Gomorrah, I've actually preached on that here in depth. But at the end of the day, we're all going to die. Sinners are bound for judgment. Thanks for the good news.
And yeah. Well, we got to have the bad news. You can't have good news unless you have the bad news. And I didn't stress it.
Yeah.
But you could have stressed. Even Genesis 19. There was a lot of sexual misconduct, promiscuity, sexual immorality that was happening.
You could have gone there, and you didn't.
And I did that. I've preached on that, so it's not like I'm afraid to go there. I felt like the Lord put on my heart to reach the creaster.
Yeah.
The one who's hopping in for Easter and then coming to Christmas. The one who, is not as faithful to the Lord as they should be. And again, I don't want to, here's the thing, I don't want to measure your faithfulness to the Lord based upon these secondary measures, but here's what I do believe is that these secondary measures will actually play a prominent role as you learn, because God has not called you to learn this new life objective and love on your own. And again, that's the whole idea of He's redeeming a people. So that means that you got to be embedded in community. So this is where I didn't feel like, and this is where I didn't feel like I needed to stress that, because I do believe what I ended with, when Jesus lives in you. Because if you put your faith in Jesus as the King, and I try to stress that, the King, not a king, but the King on the throne of your heart and your life, guess what's going to happen? He's going to put His Spirit in you. And so as a result of Him putting His Spirit in you, guess what you're going to do? You're going to adopt the new life.
Yeah.
You're going to adopt the new objective.
Yeah.
And you're going to adopt the new love.
Yeah.
And this goes back to Matthew 13 of the parable of the soils and the sower. So we know that 3 of the soils are not saved. You have some where the birds come. So this past weekend, there's going to be some where they heard, and then they just walked right out. And then I did like that, and I had to make the connection to the laughing part.
Yeah.
I thought that was, there was a good callback.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a good callback. I brought
didn't
up the
think you were
laughs.
going to, and
I brought up the laughs to unsaved people.
Yeah, I thought that was very helpful, because you covered that pretty well in like 20 seconds.
Yeah. And so, but there's going to be people that were here this past weekend. They heard, but the birds came and plucked out that seed. They left and nothing. And then there's going to be those who heard, and then they actually even responded. And what's going to happen is they're going to go back to their life, and then the cares of this world and the deceitful riches is going to choke it out of them. And then there's going to be some that they heard, they even responded to receive, and then they're actually going to give it a shot. But they're going to be on rocky soil.
Yeah.
And man, for the next maybe month, 2, 3, 4, there's going to be this joy, there's going to be this excitement, but there's no depth. And it's going to fade away because there's no rich soil. And then there's going to be those who fall, whose heart, man, they're here, they heard it, they responded, and then they're actually over the course of the next few weeks and months and now years, they're actually going to start embodying this idea of a new life, a new objective, and new love, and they're going to start producing that kind of fruit that is indicative of this new life, fruit that's indicative of this new objective. They're going to start inviting people to the church. They're going to start sharing. Man, here's what I can tell you is that, man, I knew I was lost. I knew I was far from the Lord. Man, some things were going on in my life, but then I gave my life to Christ. That Jesus became the Lord, the Savior of my life, and I began to orient my life around Him. And all I can tell you is I experience joy now. That I'm a healthier individual mentally and emotionally. I'm a better dad. I'm a better wife. I'm a better husband. I'm a better employee because Jesus's life is now coming out of me. And so you'll be able to have this new objective where you're telling people about what Jesus did for you, and then you're just like, man, I'm falling deeper in love. I'm getting a richer, a deeper, a more in tune understanding of not only God's love for me, but man, I just love Him. I love it. All I can do is just be thankful. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you. Like, I'm just a great, like, that you're going to, and so it would be those who truly fall on that soil that's rich, that you're going to start demonstrating those elements of fruit.
Well said.
So that's what I would say about this past weekend.
Well, church, be praying for all those soils, right? That the word would not be snatched away, and that it wouldn't find rocky soil, and that we would be a church family that would be welcoming and open for those that are seeking. That they heard the gospel message clearly this weekend, and the Lord did something in their heart. So
Amen.
we can be praying for that.
And we'll know. And I let the staff have off yesterday, so I didn't even text anybody about the numbers. We know that 34 responded in receiving, 55 responded in recommitting just on Saturday.
Oh, wow.
So we have
Amazing.
three
Wow.
services that I don't even know the numbers for. So I'm excited to see how many the Lord moved, and we have a follow-up plan, and we'll steward them well.
Yeah.
And see what the Lord does.
Yeah, I like the way you said that the form at the end, the response at the end, the way you position that was, we're just trying to steward you well, right?
Yeah.
Steward what God's doing well, what He's put on your heart, and just let us know.
Yep.
Yep.
Well, Northland family and friends, hey, thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of Extra Takes. Hey, until next week. Now, gosh, I say until next week. Man, I actually worked a little bit yesterday. Probably shouldn't have. But I actually had to work a little bit because I needed to get ahead this week. But man, oh my goodness, the message this coming week on the end of Genesis 22, and all of 23.
Okay.
Like if you read that, you'd be like, what's he going to do with I am telling you.
Oh, really? Okay.
It's so good, so good.
All right.
So until next week, blessings.
Thanks for listening to Extra Takes. Be sure to follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts so you won't miss a single episode.